we have a normal, healthy young man. And here we have a fellow who's been experimenting with PlayStation for only a few minutes.
Welcome to Demasked. My name is Fresman, and today I'm joined by Bandwidth. How are you today?
Well, I'm great. This is my first time, being in something like this, so I'm actually pretty stressed right now, but hey, let's see how it goes.
Well, like I mentioned before, only a mild interrogation.
Yeah, or a mild one.
Well, so for those watching that don't know you, what do you do on your channel?
I have no idea. I just do whatever just pops up in my head in any given morning. Like some mornings I'm just like, oh, right, let's program a PlayStation 2 game. And for that single day, I just spent the entire day programming the PlayStation 2 game. Then I spent like a week editing it. And yeah, it's just, I don't know what I do general tech stuff, and I do videos about programming old consoles mostly.
Well, just looking at your channel, it seems your first video is working specifically on a PlayStation 1.
Yeah, that is correct.
Now, just from watching it, it seemed like a headache, but I can't imagine what it was like in person.
Programming that thing in person was extremely difficult for me, especially because I wasn't aware of the community that exists at the time. So I was all alone, all by myself.
Oh, no.
Everything just like decades old documentation. That was all I had. And the fact that I chose to go through torture of using like a decade-old laptop with Windows XP, and I didn't have even a proper IDE. I was using the built-in Windows XP notepad to program the thing. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just... I might be a masochist. I'm not too sure, but like if there's any evidence of me being a masochist, that video is surely one of it, because yeah, it was tough. It was very tough.
I was gonna say, is the thought process like, man, it would be really difficult to make a PlayStation 1 game. Oh, that'd make a good video.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the actual reason why I did that, fun fact, that video isn't the first video on my channel. Bandwidth was supposed to be something a little bit different with the same theme, but in a little bit different style. But after like a few months of trying, I just gave up, deleted all the videos, and after like another year, I just was like, hey, let's try it again. And I was too lazy to like think of another name or even a new channel graphic, so I just reused the old channel, and well, here we are.
Well, what was it? Well, I mean, if you're able to share, what was it supposed to be originally?
It was about pretty much the same stuff. Actually, the first video was also about the PlayStation 1. I wasn't programming it. I was just talking about, the details, the technical specifications, and the history behind it. And it was basically a dead simple copy of Dankpots, the Australian channel, the guy who just, takes iPods apart. And yeah, that was probably the reason why it flopped, because it was quite literally just a copy. So, yeah.
So you know how nowadays there's multiple different programs for programming, like your Unity engines, Unreal and whatnot. How does that differ in terms of the PlayStation 1? Is it strictly code, or is there any actual...
It's completely different, and one of the reasons is that Unity as a whole is a piece of software which sorts out all of the hardware stuff for you. Like, for instance, your graphics card is nothing but like thousands of little processors. They're very weak, but the fact that there's thousands of them is what allows it to do the graphics. One processor renders, calculates the value of 1 pixel on your screen when you're playing a game. And it's stuff like this that you have to sort out and program yourself when you don't have an engine like Unity or something. Because some people may know that models in 3D space are made out of points. And when you're using Unity or Unreal Engine, you're not really thinking about that. You just I don't know, create a model in Blender and just copy it over. But when you're programming a PlayStation game or even a modern game without an engine, if you're programming your own engine, you have to do all of this stuff yourself, like calculating the positions of the points, scaling them, translating it in the space. It's really hard. And the one big issue with this is that when you're using C or C++, there's always memory leaking, which basically means that you use up some RAM and you don't free it correctly. You don't allow the process to use it any further when you stopped using it. That means that even though my games work, I think if you let them run for like 2 hours, they will break because they will just run out of memory. So
Oh.
yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough. It's really different. It's really, people say that it's like similar, but I'm like, no, it's something completely different programming a game without an engine.
Well, that, and I'm thinking back to the, well, there's, PS1 games with full 3D space, like your, Tony Hawk Pro Skater sort of deal. But I'm also thinking about the having to coordinate, like positioning on a grid, like like Resident Evil, having like a flat background and having to coordinate the 3D model to move in 2D space.
Yeah, that's actually a funny thing, because even nowadays and even back in the day, whenever you're playing a 2D game, or even right now using your operating system, for the graphics card, it's still 3D. That's a funny thing. Like, our graphics card nowadays actually don't know what 2D even is. They just project everything in a flat 3D space. It's just that everything is, in one plane, and it just renders it without any perspective distortion or anything like that. So 2D games aren't really 2D, and that's what allows them to have such nice lighting in some cases.
Huh. Well, so I'm curious. Where does your background stem from in terms of working on stuff like this?
Working like on stuff like this, to be honest, I don't really remember. I've been just playing around with computer stuff since I was a very, very, very small child. And at some point, there must have been a breakthrough when I was like, oh, now I'll start programming. But that was actually so long ago. Like, I could have been 8 or 9 years old at that time that I actually don't remember any of it. So I just grew up knowing how to code. So I don't really remember where I started. But it was just, playing around, like, just, you know, just trying stuff out, trial and error, and that's how I learned everything. I don't even have like I'm not even in college yet, because our school system over here in the Czech Republic works a little bit different than the US and UK. So, yeah.
Hmm. Are you planning to go to college for programming?
Yeah, probably.
Hmm.
I'm, I'm
Any specific language you're gonna major in?
Programming language, I think I'm comfortable with C, even though it's like destroying my mental health slowly over time. C, C++, stuff like that. I've been like my living up until this point, because there's some ad revenue, but it's not really like I can buy like a PSP over like 3 months of ad revenue. But I'm like, right now I'm programming PHP and creating just websites for like local businesses around my area to like make a living and to be able to afford all of the stuff, because the Commodore 64 wasn't free, the PlayStation 1 wasn't free, especially the Commodore in such good state. Like, that thing looks like it's brand new out of the box. Like, it looks like no one has ever touched it, and it was super expensive, like for at least for like my standards, because actually in the Czech Republic the like average pay is like $1,000 a month. Like, we don't get so much money as in the US, but everything is cheaper in here. Like, buying like an apple is like maybe 2 or 3 times cheaper than in the US. So yeah, it kind of evens out.
Fair enough. Now, so you mentioned the Commodore 64, and I'm staring at your most recent video, which was the networking for a PlayStation 2. Are there any consoles coming up that you're gonna, or at least in the works that you're going to work on?
Well, right now I've got a PlayStation Portable, a PSP right in front of me, which I'm developing an engine for right now, and it's going to be something a little bit more interesting than just the typical "Hello, this is the console. Here's a game. Goodbye." You know, I'm trying to like, it's getting pretty stereotypical, so. Yeah, it's going to be something a little bit different. And right now, I'm working on a video, which is going to be about something very cool because it's going to include the Commodore 64 as well as the PlayStation 1. So, and those two things are going to work together on something.
Oh, wow.
I don't want to give out too many details because it's quite a big project, but well, let's see how it turns out. And right now, I have a simple PlayStation 2 restoration project going on, which is like the very PlayStation 2 I used in the last video is plagued with issues. Like that thing doesn't read discs half the time, and when it does read them, after like 20 usages, it destroys those discs, like completely scratches them up.
Oh.
And yeah, so I just, turned on my camera, repaired the PlayStation, and actually right now I have my editing software open and I'm editing it. So that's going to be the next video. It's not going to be anything big, but it should come out in a few days.
I understand that pain. I fix electronics myself in my spare time, and my usual gig is controllers though.
Yeah. One funny thing with the PlayStation 2, and that's a little bit of a spoiler, but I think I can afford it. I afford to say it. The funny thing. Do you know what's the thing that scratches the discs, that
I'm,
destroys the discs,
I'm
and it
guessing.
happens on every single one of the PlayStation 2 Slims.
I'm guessing it's like the eye itself.
You're very, very close, but the actual thing is, when you've got the laser is like on a little rail system, and it moves along a single axis.
Uh-huh.
And there is a ribbon cable which connects to the laser because it needs to bend because it's moving on an axis. And that ribbon cable, over time, if the laser is in a very specific position, the ribbon cable pops out so high that it's actually making contact with the disc. And once in a few years, all you have to do is open the DVD drive and just use your finger and push the ribbon cable down so it doesn't destroy discs. That's top-notch engineering for you. And it's on all the PlayStation 2 Slims, not just few models, like all of them.
Oh, now I need to go find mine and like just fix it just in case.
Yeah, all you need to do is just use your finger and press it down a few times. That's all you need to do.
No, but I'm thinking. I wonder if there's some kind of brackets or some sort of insert you could put in there.
Oh yeah, definitely. There definitely is. Like I might even 3D print something if I get my 3D printer working again, but yeah, the video about the F1 RC car demonstrated the state of my 3D printer pretty well.
Great
And
now.
yeah, actually there was one more thing wrong with that PlayStation. Do you know the dots in the main menu? Like the little spinning dots when you're in the menu, which allows you to go into the browser or into the settings.
Oh yeah, like that weird like memory representation.
Yeah. There's a design feature, like 5 little dots going in a circle in the main menu.
Mm.
And those dots are connected not to the system clock, but to the actual CMOS clock, the thing that keeps time even when you unplug the PlayStation, right? And when those dots aren't spinning, that's an indication that's done on purpose that the CMOS battery inside is dead. And so the PlayStation doesn't remember system settings and it doesn't remember the time when you unplug it. So that's actually one cool thing. Sony actually implemented this so people can tell when their CMOS battery is dead because the little dots stop spinning. It's just Sony are pretty good engineers and programmers. Like their things in the BIOSes of their consoles is always funny.
Well, if I remember, also the memory blocks on a memory card, aren't they represented by those pillars on system
Yes,
startup?
exactly. If I recall correctly, and I might be wrong, every single pillar is a game, and the height of it, I think, is the completion of the game. How much of it you have completed, which is also
Really?
really cool. Yes, yes. And like my friend, actually, who owns the console, that wasn't just a joke, that was an actual sketch at the beginning of the video.
Hmm.
It's actually his console. He didn't know that, and it's his PlayStation. So he was like, "Oh my god, really, man? I can't believe it. What the hell? I was so confused all this time."
What? Huh. I'm wondering if I wonder if there's any representation of that during like console emulation, like on a PC,
Yeah,
or
I
is the
mean,
room just empty?
if you're using an emulator, emulators use special files. They have their own files with their own file structure and their own file extensions,
Hmm.
which basically act as virtual memory cards. So yeah, and since the emulators are running basically the same code and the same BIOS as the real hardware, then the BIOS, it doesn't care. It just sees a memory card, even though it's emulated, but it's really got no way of telling that it's emulated. So it just shows the towers. But most emulators nowadays actually skip the intro, the boot screen, and
Hmm.
just let you go straight into the game. But yeah, most of them you can just turn the boot screen back on and you can see the towers.
I'll have to give that a shot later and see if I can't see it because I don't think I've checked for mine. I mean, and I don't emulate games. I mean, I totally don't know what you're talking about.
Actually, game emulation is completely legal as long as the BIOS dump is done by yourself. So if you have a like JTAG dumper or something and you dump your own BIOS into a hex file and you use that BIOS and the DVDs and the ISOs you are using are actually like uh, ripped from your actual DVDs that you own,
Hmm.
then the emulation is completely legal because you're allowed to make backups of any CDs or DVDs you have. As long as you're not redistributing them and you're using them only for your own purposes, then you're allowed to make backups and use those backups as you wish.
Well, that you know what? That's good to know for that thing. I'm totally not doing as I look around.
Yeah, exactly. I certainly did dump my own BIOS from all the PlayStations. Yeah, sure.
I well, I've got
Actually,
a I've got a standpoint that if like it's okay if the company that made the game doesn't exist anymore.
or if they don't want to sell it anymore, the game itself. That's like my thing. But I'm not saying that I'm pirating any old games. Actually, I played through all of God of War from my own DVD. Like I ripped the DVD, my own DVD, the disc from God of War, which I've owned like for now like a decade, and I played through all of it on an emulator. And emulators are cool. Emulators are cool in the way that they allow you to like get more resolution out of the game. So I can like play original God of War in 4K. It's got visual glitches, but it actually works. Like the game is in 4K, which is just the power of emulation.
well, well, there were so I've got a copy of the game right here next to me. I found this. I was recently in Texas and I found this. Have you ever heard of the Army Men series?
Not really, to be honest.
Well, you play as like the little green Army Men, and there
Oh,
there's
I
this
can't recall.
there's this twin stick shooter that they made for the PS2 called Green Rogue, and I've been trying to get it to run off the disc on my system, but for some reason it just doesn't like it.
That might be due to region lockout. Maybe your console is American and your game is European or something like that. Because usually, especially back in the day, every console and even computers were split up between NTSC PAL, NTSC-J, and if you have like a Japanese game and I've got an European console, I can't play it. The console will refuse to boot it. So that might be one issue. So emulation actually might be a solution for you because emulators like bypass this region lockout. So if you just rip the disk into an ISO, then you might just be able to run it.
I think I'm staring at the I actually just found the NTSC thing, and it has a U and C, United States and Canada, so it should be all right.
It should be all right. Oh, well,
It might just be me then.
maybe consoles can be weird sometimes, like really weird,
Well,
especially with their region lockouts and everything. Then yeah,
well, yeah, what was it? There was one console that I remember had a heck of a time being emulated. It wasn't the GameCube. I think it was like the Wii U.
which console? I think I think if I recall correctly, that one of the most emulated game consoles was the Nintendo 64, but I'm not too sure about that
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised because
because
that's got a heck of a following.
yeah, that's got a heck of a following, and I think it was like maybe in like the Nintendo 64 was one of the first like systems which people were able to emulate on a PC in full speed without like any slowdown. I think like in 1998, something like that, people were emulating Nintendo 64 games with 100% speed, like just natively basically, which is completely crazy. Like 1998 emulation on a PC.
Well, then like some of the games they've gotten like online networking working for them. Like if I remember, there's a version of Mario 64 where you can play with friends.
Yeah, like there is actually an open source version of the Super Mario 64, and it's basically just reverse engineered, which means the people just decompile the code and then just gave it a little bit of brushing and everything just to make it look clean and pretty, and it's actually a fully working Mario 64 like game. And people, what they do is just take the source code, edit it to their own liking, and then just use it. So like mostly thanks to this, there are just so many versions of Mario 64.
I I think the one that if I were to pick a game or like an older game to fix and or reinterpret, it would have to be the older Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games.
Yeah, I've heard so much about them. Like even in my comments under my videos, people are like, "Oh man, have you played Hawk's Pro Skater?" I never, I never played. Like I, I'm completely just uneducated in this area because I have absolute like I know what the games are about. I've seen some screenshots, I've seen some gameplay, but that's about all I know about them. So, yeah, I've actually grown up on the PlayStation 2 more than the PlayStation 1, which is yeah, considering that yeah, it's just that's how it
Well,
is.
well, I think I might know why like people in your comments bring Tony Hawk up a lot. It's because the majority of those games, at least specifically under the Tony Hawk IP, most of them run on the same engine.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was. I think I've heard about it. It's no, that was on PS2. Yeah, I don't recall the engine, but I think I've heard about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
And there actually, I just remember, I just recalled one thing. Uh, one quick side note with the legal stuff.
mm,
When you start a PlayStation 1 game, that little PlayStation logo you get,
mm,
like after the white screen, then there's the black screen with the PS logo and like Sony Computer Entertainment America or Europe or something.
mm.
That's actually burnt onto the disc itself. That's not a part of the console. And it's actually a license file. And you can get into big trouble if you upload your code with that license file. So to compile any of my games, there's like this a little bit like an extra step, because people have to obtain this license if they want to boot their game, even with a mod chip, which is also pretty crazy that still after 20 years you can get into trouble by, using a license file.
Now, did you use the license file?
Like, I compiled the game with it, but I can't like put my code up online with the license file embedded into it, because that
Gotcha.
might get me into trouble. Like, I don't think if there are any actually confirmed cases of people getting into trouble, but legally I could easily be in huge trouble. Like, if Sony just for some reason decided, okay, let's go after him, even though it's a 20-year-old console, like, they could mess me up real bad.
Huh.
Because, it's actually basically what I'm saying with the license file. The license file is basically saying this product is certified, licensed, and endorsed by Sony. And that's just not true.
Oh, that would be the like I would how would it work? That would be such an interesting argument to watch occur. Well,
Yes.
you used their licensing code. Well, sure, but you haven't used your licensing code for like 20, almost 30 years now.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a good argument for the judge.
Well, it's almost like if you were to recreate a game by what's I'm trying to think of a defunct video game company like Midway.
Oh, Midway. Oh, hell yeah.
Because they made not only home console games, but they also made arcade games.
Yeah.
And I just have this image in my head of like, well, why did you pirate / recreate this game by Midway Games? Like, they don't exist anymore. They're
Yeah.
gone.
That's actually, but sometimes actually the rights for the patents and the company name and everything around it is owned by someone. To this day, the Commodore patents and the like name and the trademarks and everything is owned by like a small company, and I think they actually made like a smartphone, called Commodore. They still exist, I think.
Com- huh? I wonder.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Commodore smartphone. I just found it. They tried to make a smartphone, but I think like the company itself just basically exists, but that's kind of it. Like, I don't think it actually does anything. I will just send you a link when you have time to look at it.
Oh,
It's pretty funny.
oh
They actually
no.
still exist. But it's like there's like 0% of the people who worked at Commodore are still in there. It's just someone just bought the company basically for some small money, because what value did they have like in the early 2000s? Like, basically nothing. Yeah.
I'm very disappointed upon looking at these phones that it's not like a DOS, prompt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Commodore is fun, especially that you have 4 registers to work with, which basically means that whenever you try to do any like mathematics or anything, you just have 4 like variables or 4 spaces where you can store numbers, and you just have to work with that. If you need more, then you have to actually store stuff into memory and then load it again, and it's just a pain.
What is what is the programming language of Commodore, or is it proprietary?
It's well, for the average user at the time, they will use BASIC, which is a simple programming language developed by Microsoft, and if I'm not mistaken, it was developed actually by Bill Gates himself. He actually developed that programming language, and it basically allows you to do simple stuff like load files from disk, print stuff on screen, do mathematics, do play some sounds. Basically, it allowed you to do simple basic stuff on your computer. And usually, and the actual main way of programming the Commodore 64 and most of the computers of the 8-bit era was by using assembly, which is basically just writing the raw instructions like for the CPU. Like it's actually the end product that the CPU can understand. Which every time, like today, if I like write a game in Unity with like pretty C# and stuff, at some point it has to be translated into these instructions, and those instructions are like add these two numbers, take the result of that addition and store it into this place in memory, then load this number from memory, subtract it from this thing, and then load it into memory and store it into memory again. And at some point, everything, even like we talking through Discord right now, my my voice, the data of my voice has to be processed, and that code that processes it at some point has to be translated into these instructions. So that's assembly. And if you wanted your code back in the day on the Commodore 64 to be like fast, because BASIC was painfully slow, like extremely slow, you would like write it in assembly. But the end user, the average user, wouldn't use assembly. They would just stay in BASIC, and they would use BASIC to load pre-made or commercial programs and software made in assembly from floppy disks or even cassettes, even audio cassettes, because you could have like this little external cassette drive, and you would insert your cassette into it and press play, and it would actually load the program into memory. It was digital data stored on a audio tape.
Well, then I what for some reason that reminded me of something. It was how the processing of data from here to there and back again is I I was reminded of a oh crud, what's it like server side maintenance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it kind of does.
I say I'm probably
I think I'm on the right track. I think I get you.
well no, I'm reminded of like what's the what's that console that fell apart right as it came out? Stadia.
Yeah, Stadia. Yeah, that was a mess. That was one of Google's biggest mistakes.
Because I remember there like being this whole to do about like, well, in order to get what's being advertised, the 4K resolution, 60 frames a second, which by every account, it never got above like 20 frames.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I've got a friend who used it right until the end of its life, and I got to try it like right at the end, and then using an iPad, and it was actually like it was pretty good. Like it wasn't like I wouldn't be gaming on it for 3 hours, but like for a simple like 30-minute gaming session, it was good enough. I think I was playing like Assassin's Creed Valhalla or something like that.
Mm.
It 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 was it was tolerable at the end. It wasn't good by any means, but it was tolerable. Like I could play it. It was like 30 FPS, maybe 40 sometimes at full HD, which is pretty cool.
Well, I remember trying to explain it to somebody right when it was coming out. They're like, well, do they sell discs for it? I'm like, no, you just you log in and
Exactly. That's the weird thing, yeah, because like you don't have your games, right? And you need to be constantly online, which well, you need to be anyway in with modern consoles and games.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just streaming. Like I think that video game streaming is going to stay in like local networks. Like for example, uh, I've got this like smart Samsung television in here, which has got Steam Link on it.
Mm.
And since my computer and the television are in the same network, my home network, then it can actually go up to a gigabit of speed, and I can't tell on the television that it's being played somewhere else. Like it looks as if I just took an HDMI cable and connected it up to the TV directly, and then I just need to hook up like a PlayStation 4 controller to the TV, and yeah, I'm just playing like zero delay almost.
See,
It was fun actually. I had a friend over and we played through all of Portal 2 co-op just through Steam Link.
oh,
But
nice.
when it comes to playing like outside your home network, I think we won't see that for a few more years.
Well, specifically with the local net connection, I actually own the original version of the Steam Link, like the little box.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, that's a cool thing.
Well, the thing is, the one I got is it's terrible.
It is. It is. One thing, yeah, that was the same friend who lent me his PlayStation 2 for me to make the video, and even the next one I'm working on. He was like, "Oh man, like I'm really into this like collector stuff. I'm looking for like a console to just buy and to just display on my shelf." And he was like looking through like local thrift stores and like online thrift stores and everything. And he's just sent me a link, and I clicked on the link, and it was like someone was selling the Steam Link, and I was like, why would you want to buy a Steam Link as a collector's item? It's just a Raspberry Pi in a different shell. And he was very persistent, and he actually bought it, and he cleaned it up everything, and right now it's sitting on his shelf. Like he bought the Steam Link as a collector's item, which I don't get. Like why?
I mean, personally, I bought a Sega Dreamcast.
Yeah, Dreamcast is actually a good console, and it's like a piece of history, and it's an important piece of history. But the Steam Link is just a hardware thing, which nowadays the thing that it was supposed to do is done way better with software alone.
Well, well, I am not arguing with you on that one because that is so like even the phone connection of the Steam Link that works wonders. But
Yeah. But the Steam Link, the box itself, it's just I hate it.
well, I bought the Dreamcast specifically to laugh at it. Like I own no controller, no memory card, no cables. I can't turn the thing on. It just sits there, and I point and laugh at it.
Yeah, well, that's the point of a Dreamcast anyway.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, I think it's yeah, I think the Dreamcast is actually running a lightweight version of Windows.
Is it?
I think it's got like Windows CE. I'm just googling it right now. Oh yeah, it is. It's got embedded Windows on it to make it easier for developers to port PC games for the Dreamcast, which is quite funny. It's actually a Windows machine in its own way.
Do Do you think there's a desktop on there?
No, not at all. I just think that it's got like the libraries and stuff to just make Windows games easier to port. It's like a really cut down version of Windows, which just allows Windows code to run on it
Do,
mostly.
do you
But
think
there,
one Do you think one would be able to install
well,
Windows?
considering what hardware it has, yeah, I don't think so. Like the Windows CE is like a very specific version of Windows, which I don't think they even develop anymore. Is it even developed? Yeah, final release was released in 2013. So, yeah, and like at that point, it's just so far away from the actual Windows operating system that like the issue with that is that most gaming consoles, like today and even like back in the day, used a different architecture of CPUs. So, and when
Mm,
you want an operate, that's the reason you can't run Windows on like a Raspberry Pi or on your phone, because the CPU in your phone and the CPU in your computer are very different when it comes to architecture. And when you compile a program, be it a game or an operating system, it has to be compiled for that specific architecture. Because when I was talking about those instructions, specific architectures have got their own instruction sets, which is basically like a dictionary. It's a dictionary of instructions, and they just don't understand each other. So yeah, that Windows Embedded Compact, that Windows CE, the embedded version,
mm.
was made specifically for that CPU architecture. which the normal release of Windows never was. So yeah, that's mainly the issue. That's why you can run Linux on everything, because it's open source, and then you can compile it to, like, if you take out a chip from a microwave, like there is someone on Earth who would like be totally able to run Linux on it.
I was just say that's the exact thought I have. I'm like, so Linux, I gotta install Linux on my Dreamcast then.
Yeah, good luck with that. I don't like, on most consoles, people actually have installed Linux on them, and uh, in some cases, especially with PlayStation consoles, the manufacturers themselves distribute Linux for their consoles. Like, especially with the PlayStation 2, there is a disk. Like, it's pretty rare nowadays. Like, you have to pay good money to get your hands on it, or you can just burn it, you know.
Mm.
But it's actually Linux on a DVD, and it's official. It's licensed by Sony, endorsed by Sony, and if you buy it and put it into your PlayStation, and you need to buy like a little keyboard and a little mouse which connects into the controller ports, or maybe it can use USB as well. Yeah, it's got USB. Then you've got Linux, full-fledged desktop with a full-fledged Word editor, like text editor, a web browser, and basic stuff. And actually, a funny story, on the PlayStation 3, they distributed Linux with the console itself. You didn't need to buy a disk. And
Huh.
then they realized that the fact that they included Linux into the console itself might be a backdoor to allow unlicensed code and piracy to happen on their console. So they removed it after a few years. But this got people really mad, because they were marketing it as a feature of the console when people were buying it. And there was a huge, like, lawsuit, like class action lawsuit, and Sony lost millions of dollars on it because they had to pay out a compensation for every console
Oh.
to the buyers, which was pretty funny. But they managed to keep away the hackers for a few more months, for like, I don't know, $100 million or something like that.
Well, it almost makes me think of the sort of the opposite end of that spectrum with Apple, how they are sort of really cagey about how everything works on their end.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, that's a funny story as well, because their operating system isn't their operating system at all. It's
What?
FreeBSD, which is like which is like a sibling of Linux. And they one day they were just like, when they released OS 10, they were like, okay, let's take FreeBSD, let's just redesign it a little. But like, that's why when you open a terminal on an Apple machine, and when you open a terminal on a Linux machine, like, you can use the same commands, because they're basically the same operating system at the core. They're both Unix. They actually just took the code, which is
Oh.
completely legal. FreeBSD license allows them to do this, and they just built their OS 10 upon it.
Oh
Like,
my god.
the core of OS 10 and all of the new Mac OSs and everything is just, yeah, it's Unix. It's a sibling of Linux. And actually, right now, I've just Googled it. There is a working Linux distribution for the Dreamcast, so you might be able to make that work.
Well, I'm trying to like specifically for the Dreamcast one. I'm trying to think of like what's the most like pointless project I could ever put onto that thing, and it would probably be trying to force like a port of a game that doesn't exist on the Dreamcast or like a canceled one.
Yeah, porting games can be tough, because while the logic of the game itself stays the same, because it's C, it compiles into anything you want.
Mm.
But when you actually have to use the hardware of the console, so you need to load the models, you need to store the model somewhere, you have a lot of textures. Well, you need to store the textures somewhere, you need to map those textures. Then, like, there is a very small heap of code which you need to change. But changing it is like one of the most difficult tasks like ever. Like, porting video games can be either easy if it's the same architecture, or it can be like the toughest task ever if it's a different architecture. So yeah, it's game from game.
I wonder. Well, there's one I have in mind because it got canceled. It didn't. There are models, and I believe there's code out there for it, but there's no actual game that came out. It's the Dreamcast port of Half-Life.
Oh yeah, like people port Half-Life to everything. Yeah, actually Half-Life is good, and that actually might be good because the Dreamcast, the reason why it's got embedded Windows is for, Windows games to be more easier to port to the Dreamcast. So that actually might be easier than it sounds. But yeah, I'm no Dreamcast expert. I've actually never seen a Dreamcast in person, so
I have it in a box somewhere, and once in a while I'll just dig it out of the box, laugh at it, and then put it back in the box.
yeah, exactly. Um, I've got the consoles I have right now is PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, the PSP, which is super fun. Like, actually, most of my gaming in the last 2 months was done on the PSP. Like, I love that thing. Like, it's just the fact it's mobile gaming without all the annoying ads and everything. Like, and it's actually good mobile gaming. Like, it's just, man, it's so good.
Now I remember.
And and yeah, the Commodore 64, which is, well, it was marketed as a gaming machine as well, so technically it's a console.
Well, isn't there an emulation scene for at least like I want to say PS1 to PS2 games?
Yeah, like basically for every console there is an emulations like scene. Um, for the PS1, there is actually a lot of different emulators, and all of them are actively developed. Like right now, I can think of at least 3 emulators that have a huge community behind them, and which just and they are still being actively developed. And the same goes for PS2. Like they're like the PS2, if I'm not mistaken, is still one of the most emulated like consoles because like it's a good console.
Well, if I remember, can't the PSP like the console itself can it run like PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games?
It can run PlayStation 1 games, but I don't think it can run PlayStation 2 games.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it can't.
Because I've been I would love to take there's a select list of like PS1 games that I would love to see on the PSP.
Yeah, exactly. Like most of them work, except my games. None of my PS1 games work on the PSP.
Oh, have you tried to put it on there?
I haven't, but someone in my Discord server has. He's tried it, and yeah, they had like these little bugs, but they weren't that little. They actually broke the game entirely. So yeah,
Oh
it's
no.
still it's like it's funny because backwards compatibility, especially back in the day, was a huge deal because like if a company wanted the end user to buy a new console, they would just they would want them to be able to take their existing library of games and use it on the new console. So what they actually did usually, and that's the case of the PlayStation 2, there is actually a chip on board the PlayStation 2 which isn't emulating. It's not an emulator of PlayStation 1 games. It's a PlayStation 1 on a single chip. Like the hardware itself is on that chip. Because, it's years and years of just technical development which allowed them to just condense the entirety of a PlayStation 1 into a single chip. So whenever you put a PlayStation 1 game into a PlayStation 2, it just uses that chip and it actually runs basically on the real PlayStation 1 hardware.
I've been oh I I keep thinking up just goofy projects for me to work on.
Yeah, exactly. There's many goofy projects I try to work on. Like I can tell you now, there is one cancelled video. It's actually it may be like 5 months old right now. Well, I'll tell you exactly. I've got it right here under. bandwidth, and it's under, yeah, right here. It's 5 years old now, 5 months old now, and it was supposed to be. Do you know like those little like Lego robots? Like it's got like this central computer brick, and it's usually for kids, but they just like connect it up and they learn some basic programming with it.
Oh yeah, that was it. Brainstorm, I think it was.
Mindstorms.
Mindstorm.
That's it. I actually work a side job as a teacher. I'm teaching kids basics with these programming. And Lego actually canceled the entire Mindstorm series after like 15 years or 20 years even, which upset me quite a lot.
What?
But that's not the point. The point is that those things are also running Linux. And if it's running Linux, well, it can definitely run a Minecraft server. So I went forward and ran a Minecraft server on it, but I couldn't release the video because someone, 2 days before I was about to release that video, someone beat me to it. Someone released the exact same video on YouTube. Like, exactly. And I was like, well, I can't release it right now. That would be super weird. And like the finished video is just sitting there, like in the folder. And maybe someday I'll like upload it if I ever have like a second channel, or maybe to my Patreons or something like that. But it's like, yeah, like YouTube sometimes gets pretty competitive, even though the competitors don't know about each other.
I is do you know if the Mindstorm, like, if well, granted they're not selling it now, but do you know if that programming stuff's still out there?
Of course, like it's like I've got one right in front of me. Like I am actually teaching kids to program the Lego Mindstorm stuff, and there's more than one way to program them. Like historically, there were like something like 5 editions, and for me, the most interesting ones was the NXT and EV3, because those were the ones you could program with like that actual software where you like placed blocks together. And since that software was developed by National Instruments, who developed LabVIEW, which is like this simple graphical programming language, which controls. It's basically for data acquisition. I'm not sure, but I think SpaceX uses it to like handle data which is streamed down from their rockets. And yeah, so that means it worked with that software, with LabVIEW. And I'm actually teaching children to use this software using these Lego robots. And yeah, and then Lego came and discontinued these, which made me super mad. And they just took like a simple, small microcontroller. They uploaded MicroPython into it, which means basically it's running a very, very, very cut down version of Python. And yeah, you can still build robot, and they like released it as the new one. The manufacturing cost for them dropped like 10 times. The price, of course, stayed the same. And yeah, you could now program it only in Python. And since the main point of the lectures was to teach them like LabVIEW and not just Lego robots, then that was kind of dumb because we had no access to like new robots anymore. So right now I just keep resuscitating old robots, like replacing their USB ports, replacing their buttons, their speakers, their displays, and I'm just keeping them barely alive, and I'm just trying to, like, for them to hold on just a little bit longer. Like right now I've got a order of 100 like USB ports just to replace in the robots.
Oh.
And that's going to be a long afternoon. And yeah, after releasing the new one with MicroPython, and then after like a year or two, they just discontinued the entire Mindstorms like series entirely. You can't even buy the new ones anymore. So Mindstorms is officially dead. So that's funny.
Man, how it's perfect happenstance that the minute I'm like, I should check out Mindstorms, then it's like, oh, they don't make them anymore.
Yeah, they don't. But actually, if you get your hands on, especially the EV3 one, it's super fun because it's got a SD card slot, and if you get an SD card, you can flash a special Linux distribution onto it, which is called EV3dev. And like the thing has got a Linux distribution already on it, but it's super cut down and you can't do basically anything with it. But if you insert that SD card on which you have to flash the EV3dev distribution, then you can boot into actual full-fledged Linux. And what I used to do is use the USB port, which is on the brick, plug a USB hub into it, plug a microphone into it, and I would actually have a working voice recognition for the robot, which I would just say stuff like turn motor A on, and it would just spin the motor A and stuff, which is actually what Linux allows you to do. But it's super slow. Like when I managed to get the server running, it could barely handle 2 people, and once they got far apart, like once they walked off into the distance, it had to load so much of the world that it just crashed. And it didn't crash the Minecraft server. Like in the entire Linux on that break just froze. And you had to just remove the batteries and reinsert it.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I just chose one brick, one of the Lego computers, and that one just isn't treated very well. It's just I'm abusing it, and I'm just doing fun stuff with it. All the other ones are getting all the treatment. Like they're at this point, some of them are like 15 years old, and they're still going. Some of them are on their third USB port. Because it's mini USB. Like mini USBs are notorious for lasting like 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. Especially the cables; those like to fall apart.
Yeah, especially.
Oh. Well, I remember years ago I saw it was right when Mindstorm was sort of in its infancy. In my city we have a building called the Oregon Science was it Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. There you go. OMSI. And somebody made what to this day is I consider a nightmare creature out of the Mindstorm, because it looked like a giant mechanical spider with like a hand coming out of it.
Yeah. Like one thing, especially like teaching those kids is like one awesome thing I get to see is like their creativity. Like sometimes they make such complicated programs that the limit isn't like how smart they are. It's just that the program can't fit on the Lego computer. Like physically, there's not enough megabytes. So like I've seen uh like robots which solved Rubik's cubes, like, and like you would just input how big the Rubik's cube is in like n times n, like just you gave it a number, and
Mm.
it would actually calculate. It would use a color sensor to detect the cube how it was like unsolved, and it will just solve it like in any state. I've seen stuff like paint mixers. It would just have complex hydraulics and like fluid pumps and everything. It would mix the perfect color from like basic 4 colors and stuff like that. Like those kids are really smart, and it's making me really happy to see what they can do.
Say future mad scientists. That's what we need.
Yes. No, it gets pretty funny because they have discovered my channel a few months ago.
Oh no.
So they're like, "Oh my god, a semi-famous YouTuber is teaching me," and they sometimes they're not paying attention, and then they're like posting dumb stuff into my Discord. And then there's these weird conversations, even though like I'm standing like 2 meters in front of them. We're talking in that Discord channel, and I'm like, well, you better pay attention. And then there are some good Samaritans which are like, hey guys, you should pay attention. He can actually teach you something. And like a huge conversation just like blows up in the Discord, and it's like, and at that point, I just take a 20-minute break because like there's no restoring from that one. Like there's no getting their attention back for like another 20 minutes.
I was gonna say at that point, just start integrating your videos into the tests.
Exactly.
At the end of
Actually,
at the end of the semester, you got to make a PS1 game.
yeah, yeah. Oh my god, that would be like no one would be able to graduate.
You can skip the rest of class if you can get me a working PlayStation 1 game.
Exactly. Yeah, it's quite funny, especially when those kids are like they're, let's say, 13 to 17 years old. So it's like a pretty wide range because they actually spent 4 years. Like there's like four different like, years you have to go through. And at the end we actually get like a certification done or something like that, but that hasn't happened since ages because of COVID, and there wasn't anyone active enough because everyone was still too lazy to restore the certification. So the certificate paused for now, but maybe someday someone won't be lazy. Yeah, it's actually quite fun. It's a nice side job.
As you say, you could always make up your own certification. Like like create the engine with like, if I remember, the first example that you used in one of your videos was the cube in sort of that empty 3D space.
Yeah. That's one thing. There's this phenomenon called the Damask cube, which is like that's a necessity. That's the first thing I code on every console I get my hands onto, because uh, there was this time, I think it was the second PlayStation 1 video, where I messed something up in the video itself, and I just, placed in the editor, I just placed the text dumbass over my head. And someone took a screenshot of it, and they posted it to my Discord right in the moment where I was looking for a texture to put on my cube to test out my texture loading. And since then, I I just have to use that texture. Like it's a dumbass cube. That's a character of the show now. I think there was one time where I skipped it and people got really upset.
See, what you need to get at that point is the what are they called? Like the full color 3D printer, and then print yourself a real life dumbass cube.
Yeah, exactly. I have to do that. I have to do that. But yeah, like I've already like I've got a pretty nice engine running on my PSP right now, and of course, like if you run the thing, it's a dumbass cube, because what else is it, right?
Uh, I was just saying, as you ascend, through the more and more modern, you know, the more and more modern engines, you can go more. What's the term? You can get more polygonal with it. So, and I just had this phrase pop into my head of the dumbass dodecahedron.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about getting more and more modern, I'm trying to leave out the PlayStation 3 for as long as possible.
Oh yeah.
Because if the PlayStation 2 is hard to develop games for, then the PlayStation 3 is impossible to develop games for. Like Gabe Newell, the founder of Valve, was actually quoted that he said that the PlayStation 3 is super hard to develop for, and that it's a waste of everyone's time. And uh, like a few maybe months, maybe years after that, he was at a Sony conference, and at that very conference he announced Portal 2. And the very first thing he said once he came up on the stage was he thanked Sony for not smashing him, like punching him in the face for what he said about their console. And there's actually a recording of that on YouTube. You can just like Portal 2 announcement, and you can find that up, and it's actually the first thing he says right when he comes up on stage.
Well, the thing is about him mentioning that it's difficult to, difficult to develop for the PlayStation 3. The console versions of the Orange Box, like the collection of like the Half-Life 2 games and its episodes, Portal and Team Fortress 2, those look to be one-to-one ports of their PC versions, because even if you put cheats in on on the console, it still comes up with like the PC chat box.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
I, I don't know.
Actually, Valve outsourced the PlayStation 3 version of the Orange Box because they just didn't have the nerves to work with that hardware. So they outsourced an external company to make it, to port the Orange Box for the PlayStation 3.
I I wonder. I wonder how much like of a conversion it is, because sure, graphically it's different, but in terms of
Well,
function.
like the game itself, you actually don't need to change usually any of the game's logic. Like, um, there is this like you've got like a huge game going on. Like it can be like I don't know, let's say Half-Life 2, and Half-Life 2's got code for like I don't know, like animating characters, you know, the player has to move around, the guns have to shoot, and there's this code. And this code stays pretty much unchanged on every version of the game. Like, let it be like PC or PlayStation 3. But there's this core, like at the very core of the game, there is this code which actually communicates and does stuff with the console itself or the PC, and that needs to be changed. And once you change this core, then yeah, that's probably basically a ready port. So it's actually more of a engine thing than the game thing. The game doesn't have to change like at all. You have to change the engine itself. So actually porting a game like for instance Half-Life 2
Mm.
from PC to the PS3 is more of there would be more changes in the source engine itself than the game itself.
Huh. Well, actually, I think I might have a specific example that might fit at least not how I word the same engine. Um, have you played the Stanley Parable?
I haven't, but I've seen it several times, like on YouTube. I just watched like walk playthroughs and stuff because that is a good game.
So, if I recall, the original version was a source port, like Source Engine original,
Yeah, it was running. It's running on Source. Yeah.
and then with the re-release, it was Source 2 because it started using weird non-Euclidean space that
Yeah.
Source 2 is really good at.
Yeah.
And then,
Actually,
oh, what's that?
no, you can continue.
Oh, then they did Ultra Deluxe, which, if I recall, is on Unity now.
Ooh, I don't know. Like it probably is, but I haven't seen any of the. I've seen the original game, and that's kind of it.
I highly recommend every iteration.
Yeah, like I've got a lot of people telling me this, and I really need to buy the game and actually play it for myself. Actually, do you know the Easter egg when you try to turn on cheats in
The
Stanley Parable in the original one, the serious room? Yeah,
Yep.
that, that's super cool. I love that.
Well, well, and well, the thing is that one of those endings in the newer one with the serious room uh, is a direct reference to its origins. It's that ending where you sort of fall through the floor and you end up in
Oh
it's
yeah.
the super basic looking hallway with the wooden walls and the green carpet.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That's the original layout of the first version.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And for me, it gave me almost a panic attack.
Yeah, that's super cool. Like, I really have to play it.
I couldn't out of most games I could not recommend that highly enough. This,
Yeah, I've spent most of my childhood playing Garry's Mod, so
same here.
yeah.
Oh,
Good game.
you got a favorite map?
Plain old flat grass.
You know what? That's a good choice. That's a good
I
choice.
like to keep it simple because there's just so much space to do stuff, you know? Like, there aren't any buildings in your way or anything. You can just be creative.
I like the ones that are sort of recreations of not real places, but like a town.
Yeah. Yeah, those, yeah. Actually, even though I have like more than 1,000, maybe several thousand hours on Garry's mode, I've never played, not even a single time. I've never played any roleplay, which is crazy for so many hours in Garry's mode because like these days, Garry's mode is two things: roleplay and probe hunt. No
Hmm.
one is playing Garry's mode for anything else these days. But I actually spent most of my like all of my time in Garry's mode. I've spent it in plain old sandbox and maybe some space build stuff and maybe some sci-fi add-ons. But that was kind of it.
I well, what was the I tried roleplay and I just can't do it.
Yeah, exactly. I crack up all the time. I just
Yeah,
can't be serious.
it's everybody's so deathly serious, and then the minute I'm like,
Exactly. Then there's me, like, thank God for push to talk, you know, because if there wasn't push to talk, like, I would sound like a clown. In those, I tried it once, yeah, and that's kind of it.
well, the one that got me was the like I think it's Dark RP or something where you're in a
Yeah, Dark
town
RP. That's what everyone plays.
and everybody's got their own jobs. It's just
Yeah, it's just like, like, like I never got that. Like, when you want why don't you get a job? Like, I mean, I never saw the appeal of role playing anything, to be honest. Like, maybe if it's like a sci-fi thing or something, but like Dark RP is just basically a copy of real life. Then why would you just, you know? I never got the appeal of it.
well that and they'll give you a role and then you try to do something in that role and then they're telling you you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. And then an admin picks you up with a physics gun and jails you and bans you. That's
Yep.
usually how it went.
Well, there was one time where it was like they gave me like two jobs. It was like cashier at like a convenience store, and then I'm also a part-time serial killer.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and so like I'm standing there, and the guy walks in, and I follow him outside and kill him, and walk back in. They're like, "Hey, you can't do that." I'm like, "But you told me to do that."
Yeah, exactly. Actually, most of my hours, like on Steam recently, like I'm a huge sim racer. Like I love simulation games, like playing stuff like F1 games, and I'm actually a huge Formula One fan and everything. But like when I have free time, I usually spend it in a simulator. But what I like when it comes to like your typical games, not like simulators, what I've spent the most time on recently was the original Outlast game, because
Oh
I,
yeah.
I've been dumb enough to try and speedrun it, and I've actually I've gotten pretty good at it. Like I can finish the game glitchless without any glitches in 50 minutes. In 50 minutes, which is 56 something like that, which is actually without any glitches. And when it comes to when it comes to using glitches, it's like a matter of 15 minutes, you know. But yeah, for some reason, like that game, like appeals to me so much that I was like, okay, let's play it again, but as fast as I can.
I oh, and you said this is Outlast, right? Like the asylum.
Yeah, the Asylum.
50 minutes, huh?
You can finish it actually in 15 minutes because there is this one fancy glitch, like right at the beginning of the game. There is this one small bush, and if you jump perfectly, like you have to be down to the millimeter perfectly on a certain side of the bush, you can jump on top of it. And the bush is high enough to allow you to jump over the fence, and then you fall through the map. And at the bottom of that map is actually a level load trigger, which is basically just a space when which when a player enters, it loads another level, and it loads you into like seconds to last level of the game. So you just basically skip like 80% of the game within like 30 seconds of the speed run. I don't know how people find these. I
I'm
have
gonna
no idea.
I'm gonna have to give this a shot.
Yeah, it's super fun. Like Outlast is one of my like all-time favorite games just because of this
I oh
and the
there
lore behind it. Like it's got super complicated and nice lore.
I there's so I'm not sure what phobias you have, but there's a specific part of that game I just cannot do very well.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
like
it's the basement.
yeah, the basement is like that's right at the beginning, but it's like I've had trouble with it as well. Like I've finished Outlast like hundreds of times at this point because yeah, it's 15 minutes. Like how many times do you think I've? But there's when I do glitchless ones, there's still this one part of the game when you're in the sewers. And there's this, the big guy, the Chris Walker guy, the one that can just like rip your head off like nothing even happens,
Hmm.
and it's completely dark and you can't sprint because you're walking in water, and he just listens where you are, and you don't see him until he's like 5 meters in front of you.
Hmm. Oh.
And like I know how to get through that part in a matter of seconds, and like I do it consistently all the time. Like I think I never failed it, but every time I do it I still like have shivers down my spine because that's like the last part of the game, which still scares me. Because what if his AI glitches and now he suddenly appears in front of me? Like what am I going to do?
Oh. Well, I just every time I try to play that game, it's like, oh, the power's out. You got to go down in the basement, restart the generator. I'm like,
Yeah, that's the part. Yeah, but like I've gotten pretty used to that one because I've played that one so much. Because that's usually before any of the parts which can mess up your speedrun. So I've gone through there like 100 times at least through the years, so I got pretty used to that. But actually, when you talked about the phobias, I think the only phobia I have is actually I'm super scared of actual just dogs. And like it's to that point is when I'm walking on a sidewalk and I see even like a chihuahua walking in front of me, I will just go to the other sidewalk because I just don't want. Yeah, I don't know
huh.
why. I'm scared of dogs. Like every dog.
Well, why dogs specifically?
I don't know. I just they never. I don't have any traumatic like event
Hmm.
with dogs. I just don't know. I don't know. When I see a dog, I'm like I feel uncomfortable.
Huh.
It's super weird. Like, and I have no like good explanation for it. It's just, yeah,
I I at that point I would trade you one of mine because because I have what's known as autophobia, which is the fear of total isolation.
yeah. That doesn't sound fun.
Well, it's not too bad. Like right now, I'm home alone, but I've got my cat here, but that's fine. But if there were no cat, then I'd be like wandering around the house, checking all the windows in the rooms.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing that I'm most definitely not like a dog person because I'm scared of them. But I can't even be a cat person because I'm allergic to them. So yeah, that's
Oh no!
so that's pretty funny. So I've got like two little birds, two budgies in a cage, and that's basically like they're adorable when they're not too loud, like 5 a.m. at 5 a.m.
Oh, do they like to chirp?
Yes, a lot, especially at night.
I my cat here, love him to death, but for some reason it's only when I'm sleeping that he'll walk onto my desk and just start knocking stuff off of it.
Yes, yeah. Those are just cats. They live in their own world.
Yeah, I I think I might get him his own like like almost like a set of blocks or something that you can push around.
Yeah, yeah. Something he can mess up without it being too big of a deal.
Yeah. Or get him what are they called? The giant Lego blocks, Duplo.
Yeah, yeah, Duplo. Oh man, I used to. I think I still have my Duplo. I used to play with Duplo all the time.
I
Yeah,
had
Duplo was fun.
I had that mix of like Lego and Mega Blocks.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever see those oh, I can't remember what they're called. It's they were pirates, but it's like skeleton pirates. They were by Mega Blocks.
Ooh. I don't recall anything.
All I
Maybe.
remember is that the sets that
Oh
they
yeah,
had.
I know. I just googled it and it. Oh, I used to have these. I used to have these.
Yeah,
Oh, I just had to Google the images and now I know. Oh my god, that brings back so many memories.
yeah, right. Oh, like I had the pirate ship, and then I had like an island playset.
Yeah.
Oh, great! Now I got to go buy those again.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing because like whenever I get like some ad revenue and it's something from Patreon, it's like I don't know, it totals like to maybe like $200 a month, which like it's enough to buy like another console to make another video about. But then I'm left with like $3 or something like that. So yeah, yeah, I'm like I have to buy this, I have to buy this. When is YouTube payday? Oh, in half a month. Okay, never mind. I'm actually living on a tight budget. Like it's pretty funny.
I oh well, you know how there's that subsection of YouTube tech channels that make um like sleeper PCs.
Yeah, yeah.
I
That's
was I'm
that's a fun
I'm
place.
I'm looking at this pirate ship and I'm like maybe I could turn that into something.
With a sleeper. Oh man, what? Yeah, sleepers are fun. Be it computers or cars.
I should do that to my Sega Dreamcast.
Oh yeah.
Just, I want to make a you know what? Scratch that. I want to make the reverse of a sleeper PC. I want to make a terrible PC and then put it in that Dreamcast.
Oh yeah. Like imagine having like a flashy like computer case with RGB like coolers with like water cooled with like a huge graphics card with like three fans on top of it, like five SSD drives, and then it being like 20 years old Pentium like Nvidia like not even GeForce something like from the year 2000. Like like
check out my PC. Guess what? It can't run
like
Crisis.
that's not a sleeper. That's a insomnia years.
Insomnia PC. Sleepless PC.
Sleepless PC, exactly. It runs on caffeine.
It can barely run Doom.
Exactly. But
I,
also it needs 2 kilowatts to run.
I, I replaced the inside of the Streamcast with the internals of a Nokia phone.
Oh my god. Yeah, I've still got my 3310 around somewhere. That's a funny phone.
I've
I
well,
actually used to play bowling on stone bricks with it. We will just like take some like logs, like wooden logs,
hmm,
place them like in your usual bowling pattern. We will take a Nokia 3310, play the Nokia ringtone on it, and just slide it along the stone pathway. And just play bowling with, and it survived. So it is like we were doing it like every day for like 3 weeks. Like the case got scratched a little bit, and that's it. It
well,
still works like new.
well, so there's a project I've been tooling around with, and I have the parts, but it's just the assembly where I'm. That's where I'm nervous. because I admit I collect like random tech crap that I found.
Like me too. Like, how many people like have a PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, Commodore 64, and actually like program and use it? So
I I have a selection of Xbox 360s.
ooh.
I've got about 3 of them on hand.
Yeah,
And
I've been planning to make a Xbox. I've got one as well, and I've been planning to make a Xbox 360 video pretty soon. But the problem is, I've got like the latest revision, which hasn't yet been cracked, so you can't run custom code on it.
gotcha. See, I'm not trying to change any of the code. I'm trying to force it to work in a hardware sense with a computer tower.
Oh,
So like stuff the motherboard and the internals into a computer tower and then make it so when I press the power button on the tower, it'll actually turn on.
oh,
And
it
it's
sounds fun.
it's a series that I've been considering doing called This Isn't a Computer, where I just take old PC towers and put anything but a regular computer in there.
That sounds super fun. Imagine it being like the Nokia phone. Imagine having a PC tower just start like the old school ringtone of a Nokia phone.
All these lights
And you will
flashing.
just you will just pick up the entire tower, put it next to your ear, and then just speak into it.
Or you gotta yell at it.
Yeah, you gotta yell at it. Then it will play Snake on it.
Oh, put
Oh god.
oh my god, put like a little LCD screen with like a keypad under it.
Yeah, exactly. Like old motherboards used to have like those little LCD screens. Like instead of beep codes when something was wrong, it would show like a little code on those LCDs. So you would just replace that with the Nokia one, and
And then I I mean I could probably connect it to a phone line and then call somebody.
oh my god, oh my god, imagine.
I
That sounds
guess
so cool.
I guess I have work to do.
Oh, that sounds like a fun project.
Oh my god. That oh I gotta write this down. Pen, paper, something. But
Yeah.
but so bandwidth, we're actually closing in on the hour and a half mark.
Whoa. That felt like 10 minutes to me.
Right? like as we were discussing that, I'm like, I should probably check Audacity, see what we're at.
Yeah, let's check what we're at. What? So long.
But how you feeling? Have you had? Are you having fun?
I'm having so much fun. Like you have no idea.
I, I'm
Like if you can't tell, I'm a very talkative person. Even in person, like I'm the kind of person who doesn't know when to shut up. So yeah.
I same. I am the same way. I once accidentally gave a dissertation on controller repair. It's
That sounds fun.
well, it was specifically for the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con.
Oh, there's not that much. There's the connector. There's the wireless stuff.
Oh yeah, but
Don't the Joy-Cons have like huge thumbstick drift issues?
they do after a little bit. But I would argue that most people treat their controllers real rough.
Yeah, most do.
But thankfully the joystick replacement is super simple. No soldering. It's one ribbon cable and 2 screws.
Oh yeah, that's actually Valve did this thing as well because I have the VR headset. I own the Valve Index, and the controllers have they're like the thumbsticks are great, but they're extremely prone to thumbs. Like after half a year of mild usage,
Mhm.
like it drifts and I'm actually on my third controller, right? I have to like uh, get my controllers replaced several times because of this, and they made a revision and now it's good, yeah. But um, like right now with the Steam Deck, like if you take it apart, you can tell they are very scared about the thumbstick because the thumbsticks are just so easily replaceable, and they're just so modular, and they're so sturdy and everything. You can sense the fear in their engineers that they're going to mess up the thumbsticks again.
I
Thankfully, they didn't.
I've been able to use a Steam Deck, but I don't own one. I want one though.
Yeah, I want one as well. I want one as well, and I actually I'm planning on getting one pretty soon. And I've got like this huge video idea for it, like a very fancy thing, but I can't say what it is yet because if it comes, it may come no sooner than in like half a year because it's pretty big and it's pretty interesting. But I can't say anything. The only thing I can say is that people can expect videos with the Steam Deck.
Well, I'm thinking about that Xbox 360 project, and I already know that I'm going to specifically blame you during. I'm gonna look
Yeah,
into the camera and be like, "Bandwidth, put me up to this."
yeah, exactly. I keep motivating people into doing dumb stuff.
I well, actually, real quick, is the index worth getting?
Like at this point, I think it still is because like at this point it's like 3 years old,
Hmm.
and I think it's like still one of the best, like if not the best VR headset you can get as a kit, which means like you buy one product and it's like ready to go, just plug it in, it works. But like the sad thing about the VR industry is that it basically moved from like the end user basically entirely to enterprise. Like
Mm.
they just switch to like making stuff for companies, which slowed down. Like even HTC, like HTC's, which made the Vive and everything, their main focus in VR is enterprise as well right now. So when it comes to to the end user, VR progress has stagnated extremely. And right now you've got basically two choices if you want good VR. You can either sell your soul to Facebook by buying a Meta headset
Yeah.
or an Oculus headset, or if you're like me and you don't want to sell your soul to Facebook, you can buy an Index. So yeah, I think it's still worth it, even though the hardware becomes a little bit dated by the day. But yeah, I think it's still one of the best headsets you can buy, and the finger tracking and the controllers are a big deal as well. And the FOV, like the Index still has one of the biggest FOVs you can get, especially as a kit. And for me, FOV is more important than the actual resolution of the displays because the like there is this nice comparison I always make. When you use an Oculus headset, it's like when you're looking into the world through like a telescope. Like you can see like this black border around everything.
Mm.
And when you're using the Index, it's like looking through a gas mask. Like you still the like your FOV is still limited, but not nearly as much.
Okay. Because I've got this it's an Acer Windows mixed reality headset.
Yeah. They're
And
actually a nice entry point. I like them. Like I do because they're cheap and they actually do the job just fine.
I like mine, but the problem I'm running into is both not controller like stick drift. It's more they like to eat my batteries.
Oh yeah, that's a thing they like to do because yeah.
But that and the FOV on that specific headset, it feels like you're wearing like those circular welding goggles.
Yeah. Yeah, the FOV is terrible with those, but like they do the job, and especially like when Half-Life Alyx came out, that was one of the biggest deals in the history of gaming because new Half-Life game, like that happens once in a lifetime basically.
Oh yeah.
So I was super hyped as well, and I specifically remember, like me watching the me watching the release of the Index, and later than like the game itself, Half-Life Alyx, and I was like, well, I'll never be able to afford this. And then later, like a year later, after like doing so much like work, like programming websites and stuff, I
Mm.
was finally able to afford it, and I played through that game in like 2 days. And like it's still to this day, Half-Life Alyx is one of the best games I ever played in my life, because it's there's this thing about VR which is just it's just so immersive, it just it takes you into the game.
I oh I so that last point I fully agree, because I got like real life like angry at Russ at one point. Like you know when that first head crab falls out of the air vent?
Yeah.
I remember standing in my room with my headset on, and he goes, "Where did it go?" And I out loud went, "I don't know, Russ."
Yeah, yeah, that's how it goes with VR. Yeah, that's actually when I finished Half-Life Alyx for the first time. Like when I saw when the moment I took the crowbar from Eli, like the
Mm-hmm.
very like ending screen, I actually started crying because of the sole fact, like the thought that at that moment I just finished a Half-Life game after like 12 years or I don't remember, like 12 years or something. Like that fact alone, and the fact that I was like at that scene at the ending of episode 2, holding the epic crowbar in my hand, that was enough to make me tear up.
I, oh, like same here. I that has to be the best like post credits stinger
Yeah,
ever.
exactly. We waited like what? We waited like 12 years and we got like 5 more seconds of the story.
Well, I think the sort of the re not how I work, not even reinterpretation, the rearranging of events that happen during that ending with Eli's now fine.
And Alex gone.
Yeah, and the fact that Eli's like, we have work to do. I'm like, oh,
Oh yeah, that's it really gets to you.
I,
Kicks
oh,
up some nostalgia.
I, dude, great. Now I got to go play Half Life again.
Yeah, the list just keeps going on. It just keeps growing, right?
well, well, it hit me. I'm like, man, I haven't played it in a minute. I'm like, I should.
Yeah, exactly. I should as well.
Can't. You know what? I'll do that with my next horrifying. This is not a computer build. Can it run Half Life?
Yeah, yeah. Oh my god, Half Life. Just it's such a good game. Like, and even Portal, like Portal and Half Life,
Mm-hmm.
like the the games themselves have really grown to me, because it's just it's just the basically the holy grail of gaming. Like it's it like Half-Life 1 sculpted the FPS shooter like story-based FPS shooter genre, right?
Mm.
Half-Life 2 for 2004 is you know the facial animations was the big banger about that game back in the day.
Mm.
The and now with Half-Life Alyx, it's VR, and the fact that every time a new Half-Life games comes out, it brings some like new technology to the table. Let it be like the amazing gameplay features, the facial expressions, or VR. Like they keep pushing the limits, and I find that absolutely amazing.
Well, that and like specifically the Half Life series does something consistently from all the way from 1998 to now, where you are constantly in the story. There's very little cutscenes that you're not directly in control of the character.
Yeah.
Like there's no, what's it called? Oh shoot, what's it called? The black boxes in movies. Letter letterboxing.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no like letterboxing that comes down and it's like, oh, you're now in a cutscene. It's like, no, they're interacting with you, and then they're interacting with each other at the same time.
Exactly. That's the thing of Half-Life. Yeah, that's what Half-Life did amazingly. I still love these games to this day. It's just like I'm just super mad about AAA games like being released like unfinished, and then they finish it in like a year, and by that time no one even cares anymore.
I
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't can it run Doom? Can it run Crisis? Now it's can it run Half Life?
Yeah, can it run Half-Life?
It's gonna. I'm gonna make ensure it does. Have you played that PS2 port of Half Life?
I haven't, but I studied it for like I've read stuff about it. I've seen gameplay stuff. It even like if I'm not mistaken, it even has a exclusive like co-op mode with like story
It,
inside of it.
it does. It has a
I think
campaign called Decay.
yeah, I think there's those two scientists who bring the crystal to Freeman to insert it into the beam, right? I
Hmm.
don't remember. Yeah, that's I
Yep.
don't recall.
Well, I've been wanting. So thankfully, somebody did create a PC port of the Decay co-op. Like it's a source mod you can go download. But I want to play that version, the PS2 version of Half Life on PC because it's got this weird like almost like Quake where the camera like rotates when you move side to side.
Oh yeah.
It's
Well, actually, the the Gold Source engine is basically just a little bit changed Quake engine, so that
hmm.
makes sense. Actually, fun fact: like most games engines these days have their roots in Quake engine. Like even like Source 2, Half-Life Alyx in its engine, you can still find like stuff that's still the same like architecture and design ideology as the Quake engine. And that's usually at least what I think, that's why in most games you can still do like stuff like bunny hopping, because that was a thing born in Quake.
Or what was that Half Life 2 version where it's like the back crouch jump where you start moving at like
Yeah.
Mach 1?
Yeah, I've actually learned to do that. Like one night I was like, that's cool. And I spent like 2 hours learning to do that, and I actually learned to do that, and it's super fun.
There was a move for I think it was Team Fortress 2 that my brother has been trying to teach me. It's where it's the same concept as that like surf maps in Counter-Strike where you
And
slide along, but
those are funny.
well, it's some weird like you blow yourself up with a rocket and then you like slide and hit a rock and you go sailing across the map.
Yeah. I think I've heard that's wait, that was what was it? That was rocket jumping, right?
Well, there's the rocket jumping. I think it's called like I think wrong. It's like crimping or something like that. But you use the environment to like slide off and move around the map.
Oh yeah, that. Yeah, the Team Fortress was always good for that with its maps. And yeah, people like some people in Team Fortress 2, like forget Counter Strike. The best aim I've ever seen in my entire life was in Team Fortress 2. Like there's people who have like 8,000 hours on the game and who just like I can't even find the left mouse button before like in time before they kill me.
Oh, oh, especially snipers.
Yeah, snipers exactly. Like I think I'm a pretty good sniper in TF2. Like I've spent several hundred hours playing it a few years ago. But yeah, there are still people who like the second I come out, like they they're basically the Sonic the Hedgehog of Team Fortress 2. Like I can't even I don't even like notice them being there, and I'm just done. I'm dead.
Well, I love how when you get when you get killed in TF2, it brings the camera all the way over to the person that shot you.
Yeah, kill cam.
But then when they do that, it's like impossible angles, like they're a mile away.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. It breaks all the time.
Oh my god! But see, so we are all right. So I'm not sure how late it is for you right now.
For me, it's 11 p.m.
Oh, shit. Oh god, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I
Uh,
don't usually get my sleep anyway,
that's,
because like I'm not going to sleep like yet anyway because I still have work to do.
mm, well,
That's the benefit of not having to wake up early tomorrow. You
there
can
you
just
go.
go for it and wake up like for lunchtime.
but but
Like
you
I'm
know
I'm
what's up?
I'm just like most productive at night, so yeah.
Fair enough. But you know what? With that, so we've just crossed the hour 45 threshold, and I think here will be a good place to call it because this has been an absolute blast. But I see this going on for about 6 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Like I could continue like to the sunrise and I wouldn't even notice. Like, it still feels like 30 minutes at most. Like like it's been so much fun like talking with you and like talking about stuff we care about. It's so much fun.
so so with that, as we exit out of here, I do have one last question for you.
What is it?
If asked, would you be open to coming back as a return guest?
Of course. Like this is the most amount of fun I've had in a like voice call in a very long time. So of course I would love to come back for like another hour or two.
Yeah. I well, what I would say, I'll have to start haunting your Discord, start pestering
Yeah,
people there. But
yeah, for questions. Yeah, like, there's a lot of topics to cover.
but Bandwidth, I've had an absolute blast having you on.
I've had an absolute blast being being here with you. Like it's been amazing, really.
And
Thank you
for
for inviting me.
absolutely, well, thank you for coming on. That like I well like with with every channel I interact with, there's always that worry of like, oh, they're probably not gonna respond, that sort of thing.
Like I don't care if only like one person is going to watch it. The fact that like I'm on like this is basically a talk show, right? The fact I'm
Mhm.
on it and a podcast, and the fact that someone invited me over and like I can satisfy my need to not shut up. That's enough for me.
You
And
have
you
no
can
idea.
be sure I'll share a link or on Discord and also a YouTube post to this video to this and your channel because like
Thank
it's been so much fun.
thank you
So much fun.
thank you so much. That is you do not you have no idea how happy that makes me.
Well,
but
I'm here to make people happy.
but I so one wonderful party people at home. Thank you for hanging out with us and listening to me ramble. I
No, no.
and bandwidth, is there a video on your channel that you're particularly proud of that you'd like for the people at home to see?
Yeah, there's this one video which I've spent not only a lot of money on, but also I put a lot of effort into it, and the algorithm just decided, nope, not this one. It's not good. And like it's at this point, it's several months old, and it's got but it's got 7,000 views, which compares to my last video, the PS2 one, which already has almost 100,000 views.
Mm.
Well, that's not a lot, and it's the video where I built a Formula One RC car, and I controlled it with my simulator and some FPV goggles, and it was so much fun, and it was so expensive to build, and just no one watches it. But actually, there's one, but if I was to tell which video I am the least proud of, it's actually the first one, the most successful one, with the 1.3 million views, because I can't watch a single second of it because I die of cringe the second I click on it.
I I'm in I'm in a similar boat. I've got a video on my channel. I want to say it has 14,000 views, and it's the one video I worked the least hardest on, and it's the most popular.
Yeah. Like I worked hard on the first one, but I had just no idea what I was doing.
Gotcha. but but bandwidth, thank you again for coming on. This has been absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you again for inviting me. It was so much fun for me.
And
Thank you for enduring my non-native broken English.
oh, but this has been phenomenal and wonderful party people at home. There will be a link to Bandwidth's channel and specified Formula One RC car video in the description here. But with that, this has been Demasked. My name is Fresman, and I will see all of you next time.